Okay, well, let's go back to Extinction Rebellion. And so you talk about this activist group that's highly motivated to point out the crisis and to take whatever steps are necessary, but they won't do practical things. Nuclear energy, for example, that's a really interesting one. And so why not? Is that part of the contamination of the environmentalist movement with anti-capitalism per se, or what's going on there? It's like,
well, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think yes. And this is also in my new book, which is why are the main advocates for action on the issue opposed to the obvious solutions, the solutions that have worked, that are proven to work. And so, yes, for sure, because their motivation is to destroy the whole system. They view the system as the cause of the problem, and they view anything that distracts attention from destroying what they view as an evil system as in some ways participating in the system. So that's definitely going on.
Right. Yeah. I've seen that sort of thinking really destroy people too. Like I've seen people literally take their own lives because they thought that way. They felt they were so corrupt that any ambitious achievement whatsoever in the service of this evil structure was ethically forbidden. And so it's like the ultimate in pessimistic, nihilistic Buddhism. And it's also another example of that global thinking, global vague thinking that does in fact characterize clinical depression.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, one of the things I talk about how Greta Thunberg, the Swedish youth climate activist, condemned nuclear power as dangerous, unnecessary, and too expensive. Well, since when does she care about too expensive? I mean, she's demanding basically that we grind economic growth to a halt in order to reduce carbon emissions. She condemns basically any modest progress as inadequate, and yet she comes out against the source of power, the zero carbon source of power that provides 40% of the electricity in her own country. When our allies in Germany have been speaking out to stop Germany from shutting down its last 6 nuclear reactors, reached out to her to get her to say something, she wouldn't do it. So the problem is solving the problem gets in the way of the alarmism. The alarmism isn't just, I think journalists and others misunderstand the alarmism. They think it's a tactic to achieve some end. And so one of the things I would get from journalists is they would say, come on, Michael, don't you think that it's important to exaggerate climate change a little bit in order to get action? Well, first of all, there's no evidence that exaggerating the problem gets more action.
Yeah, the answer to that is no. Let's not lie, okay? I don't care what the reason is here. Yeah. No lying, especially about something important.
I mean, it's notable that it comes from journalists who have become propagandists effectively. And so the alarmism is the goal. Like the goal is the alarmism.
Yeah, well, let's dig down here a little bit. So part of what Nietzsche predicted was that the death of God, what the death of God meant, what he described and predicted was that the death of God meant the collapse of the highest unifying value. Okay, so it's become pretty evident to me that we literally perceive the world through a hierarchy of value, and we certainly organize our social communities inside a hierarchy of value, and there has to be something at the top to unite us. Now, it isn't obvious what should be at the top. In fact, it's so not obvious that we probably can only think about that in images. We're not philosophically astute enough to actually conceptualize it. And a lot of the religious enterprise is the attempt to conceptualize that thing at the top. Now, let's say it dies because it's God and it got too abstract. Mircea Eliade, the historian of religion, said that happened many times in our history, that the top value got so abstract, it got disembodied, and people didn't know what it was anymore, how to act it out or what it meant, and so it floated away and then collapsed into competing claims about what should be the highest value. Well, let's say diversity, equity, compassion. Well, why shouldn't compassion be the highest value? Well, that's a reasonable thing to argue about. I think there's some credibility in the claim that love should be the highest value. Perhaps there's truth and beauty, many other issues. Okay, so the highest value collapse, we're not united anymore. Well, then we're motivated to argue about what the highest value should be. And since it's about the highest value, now I have an idea, it's saving the environment, that's the highest value. Well, when you attack that, then you attack my claim to embody the highest ideal. And so you threaten me psychologically, because that's where I found some refuge and some ethical guidance. And so I'm not going to listen to your practical solutions either. And then I haven't examined what other motivations I might have. Like, well, this anti-capitalism issue, that's a terrible contamination for the environmentalist movement. So, because you're just not going to solve both of those problems at the same time. You want to dispense with capitalism, invent an entire new economic system, and save the planet. Okay.